I got another haircut, but you can't see it because I'm wearing a hat, and I'm not going to take off the hat because I specifically got this haircut so it would be easier to wear hats. Also, this hat has sewn itself to my forehead forever. Please help. The first original 2D Metroid game in almost 20 years. A direct sequel to Fusion, and the announcement that got me to commit to trying these games out. Like I said in the super review, I've tried to play that game a number of times and hated it, but after seeing how excited others were for this, I tried out Zero Mission and became the addict you all know today. Metroid Dread has an interesting story behind its existence. That makes one of us. Dread was first mentioned in one of Prime 3's scan logs. It was going to be released on the DS, but was seemingly cancelled. Then it was revived to be released on the Switch, being not just the first original 2D Metroid game in 19 years, but the first original Metroid game in 5 years, or 11 if you're delusional like the rest of us. Metroid Dread would go on to become the best-selling game in the series. Now, to be fair, I did buy it twice because I wanted the special edition, which was out of pre-orders, so I had to get a regular version and the special version. So take one off the numbers. But does this game deserve that bestseller title? Well, yeah, it's fucking amazing. Dare I say better than Super Metroid? Or just let me review the fucking game already and maybe you'd find out. Just get off my back! With all of the Metroids dead and the threat of the X-Parasite's thought gone, the galaxy is finally at peace. Wait, I've heard this one before. A video of a live X-Parasite is sent to the Galactic Federation, which they are able to track to the planet ZDR and send extraplanetary multiform mobile identifiers, or EMMIs, to the planet with the hopes of verifying the validity of that video, but they lose contact with all of them, so they send in Samus as she's the only person immune to the X. Adam advises that the threat of this mission isn't worth the reward being making sure the X aren't a threat to anyone anymore, by the way. And holy shit, they used the Tomodachi Life text-to-speech adult woman voice for the ship's computer.
We'll soon be entering ZDR's atmosphere.
And Adam's talking out of his ass. The only threat is the possible X-Parasites, which I've eaten multiple of. I'm not doing that shit again. I hate the texture of gelatin. I damn near threw up last time. There's nothing to worry about. Damn it. When Samus arrived, she was attacked by this Chozo warrior who not only beat her, but destroyed her only way out. We find this place where we can contact Adam despite the faulty connection under the surface of ZDR, and he tells us that we should leave and that he has no idea who that warrior was. As we leave the room, it's more of Samus Returns, just with a bit more polish and buttons because it's on the Switch now. And the movement is fucking beautiful. You have a slide now that lets you get through one block spaces before you get the morph ball. You have a nice running speed. Dashing through these areas feels better than even Zero Mission did. As we try to get out of the place, we run into one of the EMMIs that attacks us. You can counter it and get a nice crotch shot before finding this room with what appears to be some sort of mother brain AI. I mean, it's a brain with an eye that pretty much checks every box. The red rings lasers are here too. It's a mother brain, and that's what I'm going to be calling it. The brain gives you the super beam to kill the EMMI, but you can't keep it, but it's good to know we have a way to fight against these things. You explore the area a bit more, and I have the sudden urge to play God of War. You find another area with an EMMI in it, and this one fucking chases you around. If it sees you, it locks the door so you can't leave, and it'll be on your ass until you escape or it catches you. Thankfully, this one's somewhat busted and can't get through one block spaces, but it's kinda tense having to run from one of these things. This is the general loop of the game. You get to an area with an EMMI, you need to find your items, avoid the EMMIs, and find the power to kill them, but it really isn't easy. EMMIs aren't as dumb as the XAX was. They will hunt your ass down. And if you get hit by one, you have two very slim opportunities to counter it before it kills you and sends your ass all the way back to before you even entered the EMMI zone. As you go on, you get back some of your old abilities from Chozo statues and your first new Aeon ability from the first boss. And the bosses in this game are awesome. They showed, honestly, more than they should have with the trailers, but seeing the shots from this first boss alone got me hyped for the rest of the game, and they do not disappoint. The first new ability for this game is the ability to turn invisible, which is great for the EMMI segments as it adds another way to avoid them as opposed to just running for your life. Speaking of bosses, it's time for a fan favorite. He was in the first game and made a grand return in Super Metroid. It's the one, the only, Kraid. What's he doing here? Now, I've played this game a lot, so when I say that the EMMI encounters are just as intense on the 5th playthrough as they were the first playthrough, I'm exaggerating, but like only a little bit. Because not only do you have to know where the EMMI is, but also how it would get to you if it hears you. Because just when you think you know the EMMI's gonna take this route to get you, it reveals that it knew that you knew that, and gets you anyway. And it makes pulling off last second dodges feel that much better. I love pretty much everything about the EMMIs, especially how they use the abilities you get when you kill them, just like the bosses from Fusion. This one's fast, so you get speed booster. This one can fit in a small area, so you get morph ball. Even though most of them do that. This one can freeze you, so it gives you a migraine. And this one can see through walls, so it gives you a fucking aneurysm. One small, well, it's not really a problem, but a difference is that this game feels a bit less concise than the others. For example, in Super Metroid, you get to an area like the wrecked ship, you'd kill Phantoon, you'd do everything you need to do there, and that would lead you to Meridia. You would very rarely go back through an area that you've already been to unless it was one of the main, like Brinstar, Norfair, which you need to get to Ridley, stuff like that. And it made it very easy to go back and just recount exactly what I did for the review. But this game takes you through areas however the fuck it wants. Ironically, this game feels more linear than the others despite this, but I think that's just because of how well the game pushes you in the right direction. You probably won't get lost, and if you do, it'll only be on your first playthrough. And if you somehow get lost on your 5th playthrough, then that is your personal problem. You also can't really get anything early through normal pickups, as the item to unlock an ability is different from the ones to increase ammo, and the abilities you get from bosses don't even have an item sprite. Not to say that there is no sequence breaking, you can get the gravity suit a bit earlier, and I totally didn't do that, and fight a boss that I was planning on bitching about a little bit before realizing I forgot to hit record and lost about 30 minutes of the entire game, which was an important 30 minutes. It wasn't like one of the other random chunks of the game where nothing fucking happened. It was a very important 30 minutes that I just so happened to not record. But I've said too many good things about this game. It's time to talk about what is probably one of my biggest problems with the game, and it's such a small problem that it goes to show how great the rest of the game is. But the loading screens are very intrusive. There are so many times you have to go from one area to another. There's one time I think where you can go to an area and realize, oh fuck, I can't do anything here, and you have to go back, and both times you have to watch a loading screen. Every time you teleport, it's a loading screen. Sure, obviously you have to load to make sure that the game is there, but like compare the loading screens of this game to just going from one area immediately to another in Super Metroid. And not all of them are winners. Like in Gaviron, you reach a certain point where to get to some parts of it, you need to come in from a certain area. Meaning if you're doing cleanup for 100%, it can be tedious. Also, some choices just feel confusing to me. Like, it feels like you get Gravity Suit a little bit later than you should, even if you do the skip. This is after a boss that takes place predominantly in water, which, why wouldn't you get the Gravity Suit there? Would it really change that much? Is there really that much in between that boss and when you get the Gravity Suit that could have been skipped if you just got it there? But that's not as weird as how late you get the Scan Pulse. Like, by this point of the game, I'm already blasting every tile in a room. Is this really going to help me? It's just as useful as before, especially with 100%. It can help you clear out areas that are indicated on the map. But it's so late in the game that I forget I even have it and just resort to bombing every tile. Like, getting Morph Ball later than normal makes sense because the slide mostly replaces it. You get power bombs extremely late, which is annoying because it means you have to go back and do cleanup, but Scan Pulse would have been useful so many times before you get this. It just doesn't make sense. Though I am glad it returns because it makes this one of the easiest Metroid games to complete in my opinion. This game has the most useful map in the series. You can mark points, single out item types to make them easier to find. There are a lot of these glowing areas that are hiding secrets. Despite being about as hard as Samus Returns, this game is very accessible because of just how well designed it is. And again, I cannot stress enough how much fun the movement is. Once you get the flash shift, which honestly might be just my favorite Metroid ability now, it makes encounters feel way better as now you have another way to dodge. And one small detail I love is how Samus uses these abilities in cutscenes. Granted, it's only once per ability, so it's about the same amount of times as weapons in Devil May Cry, but it's cool. Eventually, while you're running around, the game will stop you and hit you with a nice big glass of story. You find this Chozo named Quiet Rope who shuts off all the EMMIs temporarily. He tells you that the person who beat you earlier is another Chozo named Ravenbeak. Raven wanted to use the Metroids as weapons, which add him to the list, but he can't because Samus killed them all. He also somehow trapped a bunch of X-parasites on the planet. Now, that's not important yet. What is important is that Ravenbeak is using the EMMIs to try to extract the Metroid DNA out of Samus. Now, why didn't he do that when he beat her at the start of the game? Beats me. An argument could be made that he was waiting for her to become more powerful, as by the end of the game she has fully awakened her powers as part Metroid. But if that's the case, then why are the EMMIs on in the first place, considering that they are going after a Samus that is considerably weaker than when they first fought? At least to a certain point, obviously. Samus agrees to stop Ravenbeak, Quiet Rope gets shot, and for a while the EMMIs aren't a threat. But that's short-lived as we accidentally release a bunch of X-parasites onto the rest of the planet. Oh shit. And one takes over Quiet Rope and turns the EMMIs back on, and shut up, Adam. One of the other things I'm not a fan of are these energy parts. You get 4 of them, and you get 1 new energy tank. Now, I'm fine with this in games like Devil May Cry and God of War, but here it just kind of feels disappointing. Like, I find a secret and my reward is nothing until I find 3 more of this specific type of secret. It'd be better if they gave you 25 energy points each, instead of adding nothing until you found all 4. One of the abilities I do like though is the cross bomb. It's just a bomb with better range and it makes the game a bit less tedious. From this point on, you're just exploring the planet until you finish off the last EMMI, which they give you for free as Samus realizes that she can drain the energy out of things like Metroids did. This is where it's revealed that the Adam we've been talking to was actually Ravenbeak the whole time. Ravenbeak reveals that the Chozo DNA in Samus was his, which technically makes them related. But that doesn't matter because Samus uses her new power to kill Raven, she goes full Metroid, and this thing shows up. And the place starts to explode because it isn't a Metroid game without a self-destruct sequence. I think I might have found out who's making these bases. You run back to your ship, but you can't use it because Samus's power would drain it completely. But then, Quiet Rope appears because, be honest, you forgot that he was in the game too. And he lets his X be absorbed, which turns Samus normal, and she escapes with the planet blowing up. Samus's KD ratio is fucking insane. And don't get me started on what the fuck Quiet Rope just did. I have no idea how that works. But here's my theory. I literally just came up with this while writing. It's probably all just bullshit. But the problem is that Samus apparently gets weaker from absorbing an X-parasite, which has never been the case before. There's never been a case after the Metroid vaccine, obviously, where she gets weaker. But, so, what I think is, obviously, I think I wrote Ravenbeak in the script. Quiet Rope had some level of control over himself, which is why he bowed, why he didn't straight up attack Samus, like all the other things possessed by the X tend to do. I know the X gets some memories, so maybe that's what it was. But either way, my thought is he had some control over himself. And even though he didn't have a core X, when Samus absorbed that X, it gave her the ability to control herself more and not drain the ship's power. I know there are a million problems with that theory, but I don't care. I came up with it. It was like 2 in the morning when I wrote this son of a bitch. And if you have a problem with the script, so help me God. This game is fucking fantastic. Everything about it, from the environments, the animations, the boss fights, the controls, it just shines in almost every way. It's once again hard as fuck, with there even being a one-hit kill mode that completely changes how you have to play the game. Imagine playing a Sonic game like it's a Mario game. That's the best I can do to describe it in words. There's a boss rush that's a lot of fun. You can even Shine Spark to kill some of them faster. And oh yeah, there are a lot of Shine Spark puzzles in this game once again, just like in Zero Mission, but it is a lot easier to control than before, so get good at it again. For how long the wait was for a new original Metroid, the Return of Samus was everything I feel like anyone could have really wanted it to be. It does a super job being a fusion of the gameplay from Samus Returns and the old games. It is a prime example of how to make a game like this work where there are zero mission objectives and you just are pushed on the right path. Yes, I'm proud of myself. This game is really damn close to overtaking Super Metroid as my favorite. I'd even go as far as to say it's probably the objectively better game. But because it's a bit bigger and the load times are pretty intrusive, I'd still say I prefer Super Metroid over this one. Like, if I was on a plane ride with nothing but a Switch in these two games, I'd choose Super Metroid 8 times out of 10. But I've still played this game a ton of times, even on hard mode, which I think I've come to prefer over the regular difficulty. This game does have an easy mode before, and like I said, dread mode, which I actually do have a video on that was supposed to be out. It isn't. This game really makes me hope that we will have another great 2D Metroid game in a timely manner. If not, then I will see you in 40 years with Metroid Prime 4. Until then, bye Metroid Dread. Have a great day. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Go watch my other reviews. If it is your birthday, happy birthday, and bye Metroid Dread again. It's a new year, which means we're at the end. It's the perfect time for a new marathon. But I'm not done with Metroid. No, I still have one more video left, actually. But what game could it possibly be? I've done all of the 2D games. Well, all of the 2D games made by Nintendo. See you next time.